Hello and welcome to another 3 Sports exclusive. My name is Owuraku Ampofo, and today we'll be seated with former head coach of the Black Stars, Chris Hughton, who also worked with a number of clubs in England, trying to understand his time at Ghana and also what he's been up to as we also look ahead to yet another World Cup with a coach whom he worked closely with. Joining us today is Chris Hughton. It's a pleasure to have you, Chris.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's good to have you back in Ghana as well. First off, what have you been up to since leaving the Ghana job a couple of years ago?
No, I've been doing some media work. I mean, obviously I've not been involved with the Black Stars since January last year with AFCON. So I've been doing some work with some media outlets in England, with some of the clubs, and a little bit of work for the Premier League. And we'll see what happens in the future. But in football coaching and management, there can always be something around the corner.
Well, let's go back to working with Ghana. I know you have a personal connection with the country due to your family roots and all of that. How did that play into working for Ghana as a coach? Was that a dream that you had?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, most people would know that my father, of course, is from Jamestown, and my mother's Irish. I was fortunate enough to play for the Republic of Ireland as a player. So to manage the Black Stars as a coach was something that I always dreamed of. And of course, when the opportunity came, firstly as technical advisor, and then of course to be head coach of the Black Stars, it's something that of course I was never going to turn down.
Speaking of being the technical advisor, what was the conversation like? What was your duties, and was there any hint that you could potentially transition into head coach?
No, I think it was predominantly very much as technical advisor. We had 2 qualification games, as most will know, against Nigeria. Otto Addo was the coach, and I think that they felt at the time these were 2 big games, and they felt that maybe my experience of being around would be a help. So, of course, having qualified from that, we went through to the World Cup. But I think my main role was very much to be a support network for Otto, a liaison between Otto and the GFA, the go-between, and I think in effect to take as much pressure off of Otto as I could. And of course that was for a short period of time, and that of course went into the World Cup, where there was a lot of organisation, a lot of conversations between myself and the GFA, and again to take the pressure off of Otto and going into a very important World Cup.
Well, you later became a coach, as you mentioned. We often speak about how dual national players need time to settle in the national team. But what we don't talk about is you being a coach. You are also a dual national, and you came into the country working here for the first time. After 13 games, you ended up losing your job. Do you feel that you needed a bit more time to settle, given that you had grown up outside and spent a lot of your time outside the country?
I think adjusting here, and I'll speak about the Black Stars, but this can be anywhere in Africa. For somebody that had spent all of their time in England as a player, and then as an assistant coach, and then as a head coach, stroke manager, it's very different. One because he's international football, and it's the first time that I'd managed at international football, or I'd been a head coach at international football. So that's something that takes a little bit of time to adjust to. I'd been used to working with the players all week preparing for a game, and then preparing for another game. At international football, you can have them for 2 days. 2 days before your first game, and in them 2 days, there's only so much you can do in those 2 days. So I think one is adjusting to international football, but then also is in Black Stars' role and managing in Africa, which is very different. The levels of maybe structure and organisation that you're used to at club level, because it's day to day, it's very different at international football and of course working in Africa. So it does take some time to adjust to. So as regards my role, would I have wanted more time? Yes, of course. I would have wanted more time, and I generally feel that having given more time, then I would have adjusted better to the role. But what I'm also very conscious of is this is football. This is football, and in our world of football, it's very much about results, it's very much about emotions, and in our game, coaches look to do the best that they can in the roles that they can, and when they're there no longer, then they have to move on. They have to move on and look forward to that next challenge.
So, drawing from your lessons, trying to adjust as a dual national, if we look at some of the players that we have now, maybe Antoine Semenyo, to some extent Tariq Lamptey, even Inaki Williams, these are players who switched nationality 4 or 5 years ago, but are still really yet to hit the ground running in the national team. In contrast, they do very well with their club side, but they're still struggling here in Ghana. From your experience, what do you think are some of the factors that contribute to this, and how do we ensure that the Semenyo that we see at Bournemouth is the Semenyo that we see at Ghana?
I think as regards, if I look at the dual nationals, maybe the ones from that are Ghanaian but maybe born in England or born in Spain, if I look at the adjustment periods, it's one is, particularly if it's African nations games, World Cup games, the pitches, for some that have been brought up in England, in Europe, the level of the pitches generally would have been better growing up, and I don't think that's something that's a detrimental thought. I think it's just something that's fact. I think that there will also be a difference between those dual nationals that have spent a lot of time maybe in Ghana when they were growing up, where maybe some haven't. So I think that they are the some of the aspects that need a little bit adjusting. But of course, in my experience, for those dual nationals that were born outside of Ghana, when they put on that shirt, that Black Star shirt, they very much 100% want to do as well as any player that was born here and brought up here. So I think that the end feeling is exactly the same, but it can always take that little bit more time to adjust. And you are right, there are some players that have taken a little bit longer than what perhaps we would like. But I think this is normal. This can be the same as a player going to a club for their club team and taking a little bit of time to adjust to a way of playing, the coach's way, and so. But for sure, every player in my time here that put on that Black Star shirt, 100% was committed.
Well, let's do some bits of reflection. It might be a bit difficult because, it's not too much on the good side. The Africa Cup of Nations that you oversaw, statistically, it was one of Ghana's worst ever performances at a tournament. I'm sure you did not definitely prepare for that, and you did not see that coming. Upon reflection, what do you think maybe you could have changed in Ivory Coast?
On reflection at Ivory Coast, I mean, firstly, it was for me an incredible feeling to qualify, because that was one of the main reasons that I took the job, because to take a Black Stars team to the African Cup of Nations. So that's the first part. There was no doubt it was a huge disappointment to get knocked out of the tournament, particularly in the way that we did. Going into our last game, being 2-0 up with such a short period of time, it was a huge disappointment. I think we, as coaches, we can always look back on reflection, and what always crosses your mind is, if I'd done this differently, if I'd played this player, or I'd made these changes. But that's always in retrospect. And the reality is that if I'd done them things that I think about now, maybe the outcome would have been exactly the same. So as coaches, you always reflect. Ultimately, you can't do anything about what was the end result. I had always accepted it was a hugely disappointing way to come out of the tournament. Particularly after the Egypt game, which I thought I was almost as disappointed in the Egypt game as I was in our last game, because I thought our Egypt performance was our best performance, and that is a game certainly that we should have won. And of course, going into our last game, 2-0 up, then of course that was hugely disappointing. So in reflection, it's always difficult, because the end product was the end product, and of course, once you're knocked out of a tournament in that fashion, it's not just about me as a coach or the team. You are thinking then about the nation, and the opportunity in probably an African Cup of Nations that I think was very open. The pitches were incredibly good, and I think it was very open. And I think if we'd gone through to the next stage, I don't know, I think we potentially could have progressed even more. But these are the things that you always think about in retrospect, and of course, there's nothing you can do.
Well, speaking of the Egypt game, the nature in which Ghana conceded the goals, those 2 back passes, and then Mozambique, the goalkeeper touching the ball when he didn't have to. Even in the Cape Verde game, the mix-up at the back that led to their goal. Did you feel a bit unlucky with the nature of goals that you conceded? Because these are things that you do not even train for or expect.
As a coach, ultimately, you take responsibility. The fashion and the nature of the goals that we conceded was incredibly unusual. I think when you concede 1-2 bad goals, and generally when you analyse any goal that you concede, there's always something you can say, we didn't do that well, or somebody made a mistake. But I think when we analysed all of the goals that we conceded, these were all goals that we could have and should have dealt with a lot better. So unlucky, yes, I thought we was incredibly unlucky, but unlucky is not almost an accepted word in football, because the end product is exactly the same, whether you was unlucky or not. So yes, we conceded poor goals. I think particularly the nature of the goals that we conceded against Egypt, which were unusual, and there were so many good aspects of our performance in this game. Having lost the game against Cape Verde, we so desperately wanted to do well against Egypt, and when we analysed the game, we did. It was, from the 3 games, it was our best performance, and what you expect is, in our best performance, you expect to get the best result, particularly against a team of the magnitude of Egypt that have been such a good team in recent years. So that was the disappointments. But as I said, in our game, we can always speak about the word unlucky, but ultimately, unlucky doesn't count. The end result is still the same.
And in that game against Mozambique, there's still a question that a lot of Ghanaians always ask, and I would like to throw that question to you. A lot of people have been wondering, how come you made that substitution at halftime, taking off Joseph Painter, when a lot of people thought he was good, and then you brought on Andre Ayew. Now, when Andre came on, I think he made a bit of history, joining an elite group of players who have now played 6 AFCONs. Did you feel any pressure to give Andre an appearance to reach this milestone, considering that he hadn't played all tournaments?
Now, one thing that I'm very clear on And if it was a different coach sitting here, they would also be very clear on is that you pick a team and you make substitutes because of what you feel in the game. And sometimes it's difficult to explain to people watching or supporters that maybe see something different. But ultimately, in any game, you know, and I've been involved in football all my life. I've been a head coach in many teams, and you make the decisions that you make because of what you see at the time. And I can guarantee you that I've never made any decision in a game for ulterior motives, you know, to favour somebody or to give somebody an extra game. I would always make the substitutes to affect the game and to get the right result in the game. So probably an answer to what you said, no, the answer is no. I made the substitutions the same way as I made the substitutions towards the end of the game to go to a back five to help secure the result in the game. So my conscience is always clear on this one, that I always make the right decisions, as I did in the Egypt game. The decisions I made is because of what I feel and what my coaching staff feel at that particular moment in the game.
Well, I was in Ivory Coast and I watched that Mozambique match. Interestingly, Ghana were leading by 2-0, and I went to the washroom. I think the stadium, the Bimpe Stadium, is very huge, and so it takes you about 3 minutes to get down to get to the washroom. I get to the washroom. By the time I come back, the scoreline is 2-2. And it was fascinating from a journalistic point of view because for the first time ever, I have never seen anything like this. The journalists in Ivory Coast from Ghana were incensed and at a point of almost attacking the team bus, and even at a point of almost attacking you. During the press conference, you could hear how enraged they were, smashing the window and all of that. At that point, what were you feeling as a coach, and did you even fear for your life? Because it was that serious.
No, I mean, I understand, and I saw and felt the emotions at the end of the game. You know, this was a game that we were winning 2-0, and if you asked all of the people that were involved in football, you know, how they felt the result would be at the end. Would Mozambique get one goal back? Maybe, but I don't think anybody expected the final result to be the final result that it was. Certainly I didn't. And you know, in that stadium, there probably wasn't anybody that was more surprised than what I was with the final result. So as regards the emotions of those involved in football and the supporters and the press at the end of the game, they're emotions that I can understand. And it's part of life and it's part of football. And ultimately, I've been involved in football a long time. And ultimately, it's always the coach that takes the brunt and the fault for this. It's football. So do I understand the emotions at the end? Yes. Did I fear? No, I didn't fear, because ultimately these are all good people. It's just a frustration and the emotions of what they feel at that particular moment, and it comes with football. I've been involved in football. It's not the first time. It won't be the last time for anybody. And it's part and parcel of what is a very, very emotional game.
And I think just a few hours after that game, we saw the GFA release a statement that basically you've been relieved of your duties. At that point, Ghana technically were not eliminated because depending on how other results could go, we could have finished third. Were you disappointed with how that was handled with regards to the statement, and how was it like? Were you told in the hotel, in person?
No, I think as always, listen, we are where we are at this particular moment, The one thing that I've always been true to is that there are always conversations between me and what I regard are my bosses, those that employ me. So whether that's at Newcastle or Brighton or Norwich or the GFA, there are conversations that always go on, and for me these are always private conversations. So ultimately, people outside of that will come to conclusions. They will make their own judgments, but it's never been for me to make those statements, and it's something that I've always been true. The reality is that after AFCON I lost my position as head coach because of the results at AFCON, and it's something for me that was disappointing, of course. But you have to move on. You have to move on, and this is very much part and parcel of football. But those conversations are always ones that for me are private conversations, always.
Can you quantify, the amount of pressure that comes with the Black Stars job, being someone who's...
There is huge pressure that comes with being a head coach and a manager. And of course, the bigger club that you are at, the more pressure that comes with that. But also the joy of good results is also enormous. So, the emotions are always very up and down, always. You win a game, you're on a high. You lose games, you don't want to speak to people. These are the emotions that very, very, very much come with it. For me, it was a very proud moment to be appointed the Black Stars coach. But there's huge pressure that comes with it. The Black Stars is not only being the head coach of the Ghana national team, it's an iconic role. And I knew that when I took this role on. The Black Stars head coach is an iconic role. And that's why I will always be incredibly proud of having achieved that and having taken on that responsibility. But with that comes huge pressure. In my time here, and still I visit Ghana still regularly, I know what the Black Stars means to the country. There is huge admiration and fanaticism for football here. There always has been. They love the Premier League, they love the local game, but of course they love the Black Stars even more. So I know what comes with it, and you have to be able to carry that on your shoulders. You have to be, and all you want to do is to be successful. And the next coach after me, Otto Addo, who's a very good coach, he now has that responsibility, and that responsibility will be on his shoulders. And fortunately, he's been able to take this team to the last 2 World Cups. And but it's a pressure that comes with the role.
I was just about to ask you your thoughts on Otto, having worked with him, and impressions of him so far as the Black Stars coach.
Firstly, Otto has graced the Black Stars as a player. Firstly, I was fortunate enough to work with Otto in the last World Cup. He's a very good coach. He is now taken, which is not something in world football that many do. He has now taken a team to 2 World Cups. He's a very good coach. As an individual, I like him a lot. We had lots of good conversations before the last World Cup, and even since this qualification round. Of course, there was a big disappointment of not qualifying for the last or this next AFCON, but to qualify for the next World Cup is something that's huge, and it's not every African country that can do it. So to do it 2 times in a coaching career is something big. But he's for me a very good coach, and I certainly wish him all the very best with the team, of course, going into this next World Cup.
What do you think the expectations should be for a country like Ghana heading into the World Cup?
This is always one question that I find difficult, because one, the Ghanaian public are fanatic about the team. The team is now more experienced, so if I looked at qualification in Qatar to now, there's a lot of the same players. You know, maybe something like 2/3 of the squad is similar. So the team's going into this next World Cup with, I think, more experience. So I think the expectations should be more. December 6th is a very big day, because I think what's of course needed is to be able to get the luck of the draw. You know, to hopefully get a favourable draw. That will play a big part in the expectations going into the group. But I think the expectations will be more because of the last World Cup. And at this moment, there are some key players that are playing very well at the moment. So I think when you put all of that together, but I'm also realistic. That there are some very big nations in this World Cup that have huge experiences, huge finances, huge networks, huge organisations that we are coming up against. So I'm optimistic we can do well. What I think we also have to be optimistic, and I think we have to be realistic about what we regard is doing well. You know, we looked at Morocco, who probably have, at this moment, probably the biggest finances in African football, getting to a semi-final. That's a huge achievement, huge achievement. We almost did it, of course, in 2010, having reached the quarterfinals. That was huge then. So I just wish us the very best, and I just wish and hope that we can play our best football.
Well, speaking of our best football, we would also need the best players available. And there's been this debate about how much reliance Ghana should place on dual nationals, because whenever there's a World Cup, there's that opportunity to bring in new players. You know, there's always the talk of Eddie Nketiah, Hudson Odoi, a number of players from Germany whose names have popped up in recent months. What's your stance on converting dual nationals to Black Stars players? Should there be a policy attached to who you allow? Should you place more emphasis or give a greater part of the squad to local players or players who helped you in qualifiers? As a coach, what's the thinking that goes into this?
I think as a coach, you just want the best squad possible. I think what would be ideal, you know, I think it would be ideal if, you know, there were as many local players in the squad as possible. But I think what's even more ideal is that whichever squad is picked, it is the best squad to get the results, and that's what it has to be, because ultimately the nation wants the team to do the best job possible, and to do the best job possible, you need the best players possible. When I look at the squads that Otto has chosen, I think he has picked a really good blend of existing players from the last maybe 3, 4, 5 years, and also some introductions into the squad. So I think he's got a good balance at the moment. And for anybody that thinks different, you know, it's about the end product, and the end product has to be about getting what are regarded as the best players in. And I think we all know if he was to pick the squad that's going to travel, if he was to pick the squad that was going to travel, if he was going to pick the squad, there'd be some differences. The most important person is Otto, and I think at this moment he has picked a really good blend of players that have been involved. Some have not been involved, some local. And I think he's picked a really good blend of the squads so far. And I'm sure that he will get the right blend for that squad for the World Cup for next season.
And just lastly on Ghana, they play Japan and South Korea in the Korean Cup later this week. You oversaw the team during the last Korean Cup as the technical advisor before the World Cup. How important is it that Ghana plays such high-profile friendlies against Japan and South Korea? And are you hoping for a better performance than they did last time? I think when we met Japan, it was a bit too easy for them.
Yeah, I think that having qualified for the World Cup, it's now the process is of preparation. So these two games, and I'm quite sure that Otto will use this. You have to try to get that right balance, because come the World Cup, you want the players that have played as many games as possible together. But also it's an opportunity to have a look at some of the players that have not played so much. These are high-profile games. What I would imagine that both of these countries, that's Korea and Japan, will want to play against a Black Stars teams that have, our best players in. So it is really about getting that balance. So I'm quite sure that there'll be strong teams. You want to go into the next games, into the New Year's, having a good run. I mean, Otto at this moment is on a good run of not losing games. That's that type of momentum you want to keep going. So it's always difficult to get that right balance. You could put out the strongest team in these two games and not win. You could mix the team up, put some young players in and win the game. These are all questions in hindsight. I'm sure he'll get the right balance, but it's important to try and keep that winning mentality going into next year, because you don't know, going into March, April, maybe there's some players that have been injured and they're now coming back. So it's really important to try to get these right balances, because the team will be judged. The team will be judged in that World Cup come next year.
And if Ghana were to come back later in future, would you be open to the opportunity? If Ghana were to come back in future for you to manage the Black Stars, would you be open?
I think you never say no. If you're asking me, am I glad that I took the role as head coach of the national team? Absolutely yes. For me, it was a privilege and an honour. Whether you would go back, this is something that's all about timing. Probably what, for me, more to state is that I enjoyed my time as Black Stars coach, and it was very much a privilege for me. And that's why I follow the results. I speak with Otto on any occasion. If I'm asked by Otto or the GFA to look at a player in England where I'm based, then I'm always very, very happy to do that. The association with the Black Stars for me never ends. I think once you've been involved at some stage, then I don't think you can ever rule out anything in the future.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for making time to join us here on 3 Sports. It was an absolute pleasure catching up with you once again. My name is Owuraku Ampofo, and as usual, if you do want the best stories, you can check our social media platform